Men, thank you so much
Just
for
the men.
starting off
Just
this
the men.
process with a sexist comment.
ठीक है, but I had a face for radio. मेरे को फिल्मों में काम नहीं मिला तो क्या हुआ? मैंने सोचा ऑडियो फिक्शन में अब मैं एक्टिंग कर लूंगा.
क्या बात? All yours.
What happens to the show if you break up? I'm a bit too old for this conversation now. Heart is beating.
But
Naina, one second. If you call yourself a sad, lonely woman of India, men are going to cut off right now in this ballroom.
To give a controversial opinion, I don't think in India audio podcasts are the future. There's something.
All right, so let's get to it. It's pretty simple. You guys have been doing this for a while. Cyrus, out of seniority and age, I'm going to start with you. So my question to you, Cyrus, is that we all know you since 2000 years ago on television. For you to make that switch to audio, was it a step down? Let's just start from there.
Beta, I can't hear properly. Can you repeat the question? Age big cheese hai, beta. I don't know about that. First, before I answer that lovely question, I want to just address the men in the room.
Men, thank you so much
Just
for
the men.
starting off
Just
this
the men.
process with a sexist comment, Cyrus.
It's not really sexist. Once you let me finish speaking, you'll realize. Men who use the bathroom. Why do you spend 10 minutes washing your hands? You pee, and then the guy in front of me, you by the way, took 3 minutes, but you were doing your hair. He was doing his hair, so I'll leave that alone. But there were two men, and they took about 10 minutes to wash their hands. A lot of water was wasted. And all you do is you pee. Unless you pee on your hands, I don't understand why they have to wash their hands for half an hour. So can we not do that again? This is just my public announcement for the morning and afternoon or whatever time it is. Now we'll answer the question, which is step down. My whole career, Rohini, has been a career failure. It's been so much failure that I started glamorizing it. In fact, when people say nice things, a couple of people recognize me and said, "Hi, Sajid, can we take a picture?" I immediately, I don't know how to react. I'm not used to that. I'm like a cancer patient who's got better. So it's just wrong after some time. Okay, everything I'm going to say from here is downhill. So, Mantra, get off the stage now. Yeah, so for me, it's no biggie. There's a gentleman there called Amit. I don't know if you can see him with the long hair and the beard. And because of poor sales performance, 3 teeth are missing. But he's the pioneer. He's the man behind our IVM podcast. He came up to me one day. I've told this story 200 times. It's like the story of Christmas. He came up and said, "You want to do a podcast?" I had no idea what it was, so I immediately said yes. That's how I got married. I met my wife, Aisha. She said, "You want to get married?" I said, "Sure." It was a text. Yeah. But, so it was all him. So for me, it was just like a hobby. Now, sadly, the hobby's become more serious, and I'm making much less money today than I was in 1996.
All right, thank you, Cyrus. Cyrus says, deserves a round of applause. I'll tell you one thing. As hosts in this room, or potential hosts, Cyrus truly is a beacon of shining light for us to be ourselves and not be apologetic and not let guests talk. Who cares about the guests, right? Give it up for Cyrus Broacha.
Wow. It's almost praise. I'm so
you,
happy.
Cyrus.
Thank you so much.
All right, Mantra. Welcome to the roast, guys. This is Mantra. It's your turn.
totally, you got Cyrus on stage. I don't know why you even calling yourself the host of this panel.
I agree. The roast works both ways. I'll tell you something, Mantra. Having shared radio studios with you, I know Bhaskar Bose is triumph.
Not those kind of stories. Just
That's true also.
very family audience
I'm
out there.
really sorry about that. We brought it up. He's a wannabe married man, so we'll get there at some point. But Bhaskar Bose's victory was a triumph for India's homegrown fiction podcast. You created a character. I remember all of us celebrating when Bhaskar Bose solved his 100th case. It was a little victory for all of us. When you were, making Bhaskar Bose, did you know that this audience is so hungry for this character who they'll probably never see?
No, totally. I knew it. Aditya knew it. Aditya, are you there? Yeah, he knew it. This is how we all began right at the beginning. And I think most important part for us was the man who is not here right now. Is Unni here? Yeah, there you go. That man believed in us, and that's the reason why Bhaskar Bose became what it became, and he's Mr. Spotify for us. And the way he gave us... by the way, Bhaskar Bose circled around a lot before going to Spotify, and there were a lot of other people who did not see potential in it, but Unni did. And I think there's a man with a vision, and that's the reason why it has become what it is. And more so for audio fiction, you were clearly saying, not stepping down or anything. हाँ ठीक है, but I had a face for radio. मेरे को फिल्मों में काम नहीं मिला तो क्या हुआ? मैंने सोचा audio fiction में अब मैं acting कर लूँगा.
क्या बात है?
And no, but honestly, audio fiction began with a boom thanks to audio boom, thanks to Spotify. And we didn't know it back then, but we are very happy that we went ahead and created the most popular audio fiction character.
Absolutely. A round of applause for Bhaskar Bose, please. It's amazing. Yogi and Kabeer, of course, there are so many things that I learned from your podcast. And I think the first thing that I learned is that if Kabeer gets hospitalized, his 10th cousin has more rights than him, as you know, despite being a partner. This is, of course, one of India's premier LGBTQIA+ podcasts in India. You guys have been on hoardings. You won awards for your podcast. You've been nominated and won for the Voice of the Year category at the Cosmo Bloggers Award. So, first of all, we'll give you a round of applause. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And let me start off by asking you, when you were making your podcast, who was your audience? Was it only the community when you started off? And did you at that point think it would go beyond?
Well, when we started off, it was actually only about our love story. We didn't have any audience in mind. All we were thinking about was that how often does it happen that two RJs who worked in the same radio station fall in love with each other and have been together with each other for 6 years now and want to start a podcast. And actually, this is more boring, but Yogi will tell you the real reason why we actually started the podcast.
No, actually, can you hear me? Yeah. So of course, it was us sharing our love story, and we never thought that we were representing a community or we were giving voice to anyone but us. But I don't know when that shift happened, when we started getting these messages on Instagram from places like Ranchi, Indore, Jaipur, people who were in closet, and they felt seen. In an audio medium, they felt seen.
Beautiful.
So yeah, for us, Shuddh Desi Gay, our podcast, and shout out to the Spotify team, जिनके बिना I don't think it would have been possible pandemic के बीच में ये podcast शुरू करना, and in a language which homosexuality usually people consider it's a Western thing, जबकि ऐसा बिल्कुल नहीं है. And that's the reason why we wanted to do this podcast in a language जिसमें हम बात करते हैं. Like in our podcast, we don't say समलैंगिकता, we say homosexuality. But we talk in जैसे हम आपस में एक दूसरे से बात कर रहे हैं, English. So this was the first time where इस topic पे English में बात हुई.
And actually, one of the reasons we also chose to do that is because the biggest, this is something which is said for the community कि सारे references बाहर के हैं, ये तो बाहर से ही आया है, सारी बातें हमेशा अंग्रेजी में होती हैं इसको लेकर. तो हम जब research कर रहे थे, when we found out that there were actually no references, we thought that let's become one. Because there is no other way around it. We have to talk about our own story, and that's how we started.
Can I ask a question?
All yours.
What happens to the show if you break up?
Oh my God!
I'm just as a marketing guy.
That was the major concern हमारा producer का.
Insurance भी एक चीज़ है life में. I'm worried now.
It's been 9 years.
I'm married 23 years. Every day I wake up thinking I'll go.
Yeah, because you got married.
Oh, nice. Thank you. I'm going to quickly move to Naina at this point. Naina, you and Sakshi are two BFFs who talk about such relatable content for girls. Let me just tell you, it's my go-to gym podcast as well.
Thank you.
That's number one. And I'll tell you one thing I learned from Moment of Silence. I learned on your podcast that Tamanna Bhatia's navel has an IG page that has 388,000 followers.
You're
Mind
welcome.
is blown. This is why I listen to podcasts, guys, for this information. But it's true.
It is true.
Why are you judging me? This is what I live on, and this is what we all want.
100%. Honestly, first, hello. Nobody knows me in this room. I'm Naina Bhan, and my co-host Sakshi is currently not here. We run a women's frustration podcast called Moment of Silence. We are the emerging talent that was mentioned earlier. We also have audience from Ranchi, Indore, but they hate us. Most of the people are like, why are podcast mics so cheap and accessible, and who handed it to these two? So we also talk about very, very important issues like how Tamanna Bhatia's navel is on the internet. We talk about lots of Gen Z slang like loophole.
I'm a bit too old for this conversation. Heart is beating.
But
You don't want to know what Cyrus calls it.
but why are we
He
discussing
calls
our
it
life
potty.
here?
Yeah.
Okay, why did I say that? I don't know why.
Basically, we realized that there is no place for sad, lonely women of India on the internet to feel safe.
Now, 1 second. If you call yourself a sad, lonely woman of India, men are going to cut off right now in this ballroom. Guys,
Show me one cut off right now.
But no, I love it. I love it because honestly, this is one of the most relatable podcasts that I listen to. It gives a voice to women. And at so many points, I'm listening and I'm like, I'm nodding along, right? So I'm going to take that into my next question to each of you, starting with you, Naina. When did you know people were listening?
When I got invited for this panel, actually, was the first time that it dawned on me.
Love it.
That we have an audience. No, honestly, like I told you, I'm joking about it, but there are like Gen Z. I'm a millennial, but Gen Z, a lot of them are not getting out of the house. Dating is no longer a concept, which was news to me. Everybody's having like simulated parasocial relationships. So I myself, when I'm like doing dishes and showering, I'm listening to a podcast the entire time. I need someone in my ear. And that's kind of what we were aiming for. We're like, let's just have the most honest, raw, like female girlhood conversations. And I know that if we're having them, there are other people out there looking for that. So it's really nice because now our audience is like, you guys are the best girlfriends we've ever had. And we don't know you, but we totally relate to everything you're saying. So
Thank
it's
you
great.
so much. Thank you so much. I'm going to take that question quickly around the room at this point. One of you can answer. When did you know people were listening?
So, Rohini, a lot of people, so a lot of people call us bhaiya. Okay? Because they share their deepest secrets with us. Na? Not a lot of people are out in India. In fact, majority of gay men get married. So
To women.
To women, yeah. So हमें तब पता चला जब हमारे DMs में लोगों ने they started to come out to us. And that was something which was major for them. And we were like, people are sharing. And that's the beauty of podcasting because it's such a personal medium. And for something like this, for Shuddh Desi Gay, it was an apt medium. इसलिए हमने video पे नहीं, audio में ये podcast.
I'll just tell you one instant actually. This happened that a girl actually sent us from Kolhapur. She sent screenshots of images of handwritten letters. So she'd written, but she didn't have our address. So what she did was she just clicked the pictures of all the pages of the letter and she sent it to us on our DM. And that's when we knew that people are listening.
How beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm going to change that question for you, Mantra, at this point because we have a very, very tight clock today. There's so much pressure, okay, for all audio podcasts to go video. So, but Bhaskar Bose hasn't succumbed to that as yet, has he? How are you dealing with that pressure?
That'll then completely change the entire concept of it all. In fact, I know that we follow the trends, and with every passing day, every passing week, we need to follow a trend. When did we shift from audio podcast to video podcast? Who remembers? Pata bhi nahi hai ki kab ye actual transition hua. Joe Rogan did it somewhere in the West, and then slowly and easily, these podcasts came to the video medium. Me and Amit were talking about the same thing a few minutes back. Making an audio podcast is so much more easier than creating a video podcast. We know this. And the purpose of creating an audio podcast is that it's a podcast. People can listen to it while working out, while driving, while in the gym or doing their chores. That's where it worked for all of us. In fact, COVID was the time. Unfortunately, it was a horrible time for all of us, but it was a time when people were listening to maximum podcasts. I can speak about audio fiction that it started off back in the 1940s and the 50s with All India Radio's Hawa Mahal till date. Of course, the medium has changed. Today we are on Spotify, today we are on Audible, today we are on Cuckoo or many other portals. But it's the same audience who enjoys reading a book, the same audience who enjoys the theater of mind, the same audience who wants to create the film in their own mind. And you get invested in it. Cinema, you're there, you're sitting, watching a empty wall जिसके ऊपर कुछ lights flicker कर रही हैं. Salman Khan's not really there. Shah Rukh Khan's not really there. But when you start listening to audio fiction, the play starts playing in your mind. And that is a genre which people really enjoy. And Bhaskar has Bhaskar has gone ahead and proved it. So I would really want to hear podcasts rather than watch podcasts. So
That's so
podcasters, please pay attention to the audio medium. I know it is very easy to follow the trend and fashion and now become a video podcast. इसको nobody would remember also कि कब वो transition आया. Me, Amit, many other podcasters here must be thinking, oh, we've got to follow with what is happening. But stay with audio, guys. It's going to be easier for the long run.
Thank you so much, Mantra, for that. Cyrus, did going back from audio to video then change the nature of your content in any way?
Well, obviously our viewers dropped immediately because, I mean, come on. But I think these questions Amit is better placed to answer because it's like an experiment podcast. It's like that ugly child you have, and then you don't know what to do with the child. You'll say, marketing mein jayega, engineering or whatever. You're not sure because kid's so ugly that nobody wants him. So for me, podcasting is there, but it's coming, slowly. Look at these guys; they're trendsetters. You have an openly gay podcast, and they're getting a lot of traction. People are supporting them. You can see a lobby being created. She's fantastic. I've just met her for the first time, but I'm already in love with her. Don't file a complaint, please. I've already got 7, and they're all young girls only, so it's looking really bad on my resume. By the way, I want to be gay. I can't stand women because they reject me all the time. And men like me. But I don't know how to do this. I mean, I wake up in the morning, I'm like, I should be gay. I wake up, 3 minutes later, I'm looking at a Hustler magazine. Because I'm old. I don't even look at the phone. How many people still have magazines at home here? I want to meet my people. We had magazines, Rohini. We used to really respect. Every name was known to us. You guys, midget, on that rubbish. Anyway, what is the question?
My question. I have a funnier question for you, Cyrus. For someone who's so socially adept, how does your podcast go beyond your show? I'm sure you're thrilled at the prospect of building community.
Well, I'm a great student of arguably the greatest broadcaster the world India has ever produced, perhaps Asia, maybe not the world, but top 5 since Socrates without a television. So I worship Arnab Goswami. And he's taught me one thing. You don't worry about who's listening. It's really of no relevance. If you're listening, that's good enough. So I told Amit, screw everybody else. They all sit there with their data and look for people and try to say the right thing and be politically correct and make people feel happy. And I said, but these guys have proper, themes and that's different. But we're jokers. Killing time on a podcast. We just continue to do that. Listen to ourselves and just go on. The arrogance is unbelievable.
I love it.
And as you age, it gets worse. It's like that boil in your posterior, and I know about this only from the outfit.
I love it. Mantra, of course, is playing the role of an optical illusion artist with his costume today. This is fantastic. Then I'm going to take this question to you because we have very little time. But at the same time, I think it'll be enriching for, anybody here, who wants to start their first ever podcast. Show of hands, please. Anybody? Yes, that's great. 2.5 people at a
The standard is so low. Everybody's saying it's so easy now.
Lovely. I love it. This is why we're here. I hope you didn't pay for your seats. All right, let's go to Naina.
Yes.
One piece of advice that you'd like to give people in the room if they want to start their podcast, because suddenly I hear names like Amit Doshi, Ramesh Menon, Unni, for example. Do we need to hack them and find them on LinkedIn and, just reach their houses or something?
I am going to talk to them after this panel because till now I've been supporting my own business, which is my podcast. But to give a controversial opinion, I don't think in India audio podcasts are the future. There's something about how, no, in the sense that I personally, my voice...
Age big cheese hai, beta. You must respect us. He's been in the business since Vajpayee government,
Sir,
the first one.
Sir, my voice is so irritating. If I don't put my face next to it, no one wants to listen to me. So so what I was saying was that there's something about the audience wanting to attach video to everything. I would love if we could just do audio-only formats, but video is the future. Put some money aside. It costs a lot of money to run a podcast, and have patience.
Wow, thank you so much for that. We're very hopeful. You're the future. Loving it, absolutely. Yogi and Kabeer, what's your one piece of advice you'd like to leave the audience with? If they'd like to start a podcast, what's a good starting point? Just 2 microphones? Where do you publish? Who do you go to?
I think Anchor, which of course now it's Spotify's app, you can just start your podcast and you don't need any equipment. We did our podcast घर में बैठ के pillows लगा के and आप अपने earphones के साथ you can just start. You don't need fancy equipments and just find your niche and start your podcast.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Mantra?
Not like a setup leke and full taiyar okay. You don't need that. And that's where the beauty of the medium comes in.
Lovely.
Yeah, totally. I think the great conversations make great podcasts. If your conversation is good enough, I'm not really bothered about whether I'm looking at you or not. And at the end of the day, podcast, the word came from podcasting. I mean, it was supposed to be an audio medium. Either call it something else, call it a talk show, call it a feature, call it whatever it is. But I really would like to have conversations being heard. And especially for my genre, for audio fiction, if I go ahead and make it into a video, वो picture कहलाएगी ना, फिर वो cinema हो जाएगा.
बिल्कुल.
I create audio fiction, audio drama as the theater for the mind, and I prefer being on audio on that front.
Fantastic. What's a good starting point for audiences? Like where can they go and be like, मुझे podcast शुरू करना है? Mantra, what would you say?
I mean, there are multiple mediums out there, and especially I think Spotify has a brilliant setup for young podcasters. You can just go in there. Spotify for Podcasters is a great way to get started. There are many other portals also. Hubhoppers here, we worked with them also. They are also wonderful with that. Omni is doing so well. Idea Brews is doing so well. So you got to be attached with someone, of course, but it is very easy for you to do it if you just go ahead, research a little bit on it. If you have any direct questions, we are around. We are here to help you.
Yeah, I think that is the advantage of today's conclave, that a lot of these people, who we're talking about are in this room. You can identify them and then, shoot your snipers at them. Amit Doshi right there, and there's Unni there, and there's Ramesh Menon there. So just go find them and then hound them, I guess. This is the day to do it. Cyrus, please give us a piece of advice before we all leave this panel forever.
Rohini, I have a slightly dissenting opinion to all the other panelists. I feel there are too many podcasts, quite frankly. Just too many and too many opinions, and I want to stop that. We can use some of the podcasters to do other work, like the coastal road is not complete. Shinde has said that June 10th mein kaisa banayega? I looked at it, it's not even like half a bridge, like 2 stones have been put there going this way. I mean, there's so many hospitals, there's so many things that you can do. So, do podcasts, but don't overdo it. I'm sure farmers, engineering, there's so many other professions out there, sports, Mumbai Indians may need a captain. There's so many things. So, I'm not trying to dissuade people, but I'm saying the market is crowded. Sir and I have families to feed. Mine is legal. His is the Sharmas from opposite building. Sara, tu bhi yaar, really. Keep it in your pants. Unbelievable. So I'm just saying, I think there's a glut of podcasts also. I mean, it's great because we're getting this real talent now, which is out there with something to say, young girls' voice. They are talking about something which has been oppressed for far too long. So that's all good. But the people like me, there are too many. We need to put them to, do physical labor of some kind.